Hey
Welcome back to
guys.
Talk Spicy to Me. And we are going to talk to you today about what if you don't like sports romance versus, hey, what if you do? So for me, sports romance isn't a huge, first pick. But I do have some that I will definitely go right into blind because I know that the author has always, never steered me wrong. But you guys really like sports romance, or to a degree.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? I actually like sports romance for a person like in real life who's like so clueless about it. I do enjoy sports romance, but it's gotta be like just right. And I know it's like, what is that? Like the hero has to like the hero, the banter, the story. Like I just really have to be drawn into it because
Hmm.
like the sports part isn't what pulls me. It's really the characters and like their development and their relationship. So I think that's what I like about it. And then the sports is just like, oh, and they play a sport.
Does it have to be
Uh,
like a specific sport?
Honestly, no. I like them all. Like basketball, football, hockey, baseball. Like I
Is
like
there a
sports.
basketball romance book?
Kennedy Ryan's
yeah.
Hoop series is basketball,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
and
I
it's
haven't
actually
read that one.
one of my favorite sports series.
All right, I'm gonna
That's
have
like
to
the one
put that
sport I
in.
know just a tad bit about because my brother played, but that's
See,
it.
I think that I really like sports romance, but I think we've talked about this before. I think that it's really nice because it can encompass a lot of the other tropes.
Mhm.
hmm
I do find that generally more of the sports romance are like rom-commy, which honestly I have to be in the mood for. Like I'm more of like a dark heart kind of girl, so I definitely prefer dark
same.
romance. But I still really enjoy sports romance, and I like when I have my go-to authors that are writing these because I know that I'm going to enjoy their books, like you said, Heather. But I
Exactly.
also really like like the uniqueness sometimes where if I'm reading the blurb or if somebody recommends a sports romance to me and it just sounds different and not necessarily a stereotype or a stereotypical book, I'm like, you know what, I should kind of give this a chance.
Yeah.
So I do like sports romance
See,
because
and I agree with that, like 100%. So, like for instance, Allie, she writes sports romance. She's done a few different sports, and I know that her U of J series was football, and I might not be a huge sports romance person, but I was so enthralled in that series. Like I needed more. And even after every cliff, and it was like, you didn't just leave me there. Like, what? And I wanted more of that. But if you were to ask me what my favorite book to like pick up is, it's gonna be more on the dark side. So I think it's just what that author has to offer the story. So whether it be like the witty banter or the other like side character development or just like the plot in general, instead of just hey, we play sports.
I
How
think
you doing?
also
oh,
go ahead, Jess.
I was gonna say to feed off what you said, Heather. I think what really draws me into Allie's books is that I can literally feel the passion she has for sports seeping
Or the
off the
pain.
pages. Like
Mm,
I can feel it. Like when she gives those moments about them being at the game, I don't even mind because I feel like I'm really at a game. Like my heart races.
yes.
I'm
Yes.
like, what's the final score gonna be? Like she really puts me into the mindset where I feel like I'm not even in the book anymore. I feel like I'm actually like at a game. Like I think
And
I'm
even like
yeah.
yeah, like her rival sports teams characters or like even like rival people like Liam Parker. The passion that I have for that man being Big Bubba's bitch in jail. It is hands down like that's just where he belongs. But he wasn't even like a main, like he wasn't a not main character. He was like a big bad side character type of thing. Like he shouldn't have taken up free space in my head. But he is Big Bubba's bitch. And
Like
every bad
still.
character that I come across belongs with Big Bubba and Liam Parker. Like it just stuck with me.
I think also just like what you were saying, the fact that in sports romance what's really nice is that not every sport, but there is that team dynamic, and you can see the enemies that are made, whether it's a rival team or within that team. They might not get along with all the players, or that fandom for that team. So if it's like a football game and you're right there cheering with them, if it's done right about the hype, and you want to know, like you said, who's going to win, what's that final score.
Yes.
Now I might not know every sport, and I might not know all of like the generic direction, but if you're hyping it up, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, they won! Like this was so good, or I'm gonna feel sad that they lost. And
Right.
I think that all of that ambience, all of that encouragement from the game actually adds to the story for me. But again, like it has to be done well.
So I have a question. How do I word this? So if you didn't know all of the rules, would it bother you that if, whatever went down in the book wasn't the same in real life?
Honestly, I wouldn't know. I don't know enough about the sport to even identify, okay, wait, this is not right. Like, this is not how they do in real life. Like, I don't know enough to even determine the difference. So for me, that wouldn't ruin it for me because I don't know enough about it. But that's a great question because I think that can definitely like change a person's insight or how much they enjoyed the story if they actually know a lot about the sport. Then and they're able to identify, okay, this is incorrect. This is not how it goes in real life. Like,
It's funny because I actually told Allie about that. Actually, I had said, I feel like I learn a lot of my sports from sports romance.
Yes.
So like, I'd hope that it's accurate what I'm getting.
Right.
Because like, I mean, the positions and like a lot of it is Googleable, but at the same time, like, I don't want to Google. I just want to be in the book. So I don't know if I would be bothered if it's wrong and I don't catch it, but I think I would be bothered if in that world it's just wrong and I notice it. Like if it's said or if it's explained why in the world that this is different to the real world, totally fine with that.
That's
their world. Right. But
I'm definitely not going to take what I read in a book and like go and bet against my husband because Lord knows I'm going to lose. So it's not like, hey, I'll put that. Nope, don't bet on that. But, I would like to imagine that it's not incorrect information. But then again, that's also why I like, the out of the box sports romances, because generally when people say, hey, you want to read a sports romance? And they're like, oh, is it football, baseball, hockey? And, and you get the main meat and potatoes. But I've come across several regular sports romances that I thought were fan-frickin-tastic.
Well, exactly. Like, I think a lot of the common things are going to be high school football, college football, pro football, and then it could even be said for hockey, which I know, like, I love hockey romance, don't get me wrong, but I think that it's very common.
I know jack shit about hockey in real life.
Yeah, that and football are like the most common, like, that I see, I feel like, as far as sports romance goes. So,
well, even like the trope, like the common jock, and maybe he's a player on and off the field,
Exactly.
And that does catch me, but I'm like, okay, how is this different? What are you selling me?
Right. And then I think that's kind of where it comes in, how Heather mentioned earlier, like, it kind of has to be your thing then, because you run into a lot of the kind of like that same kind of recipe for it. And if it's not your thing, then it's like you said, like, how are you going to sell this book and keep me into it to where I want to read it, from start to finish?
Right.
Exactly.
It also makes me like the authors that make the heroine the athlete.
Yes,
because
that's different.
As a woman, I can relate. Like, I'm not the quarterback. I'm not going to know what that world is like. But if you put, the ice skater out there, the cheerleader, the gymnast, like, as a woman, that's probably more of something that either I've done before, not in a long time, or, I can imagine doing.
Well, it also builds them up as a heroine because you almost think that, not that they were never not as important, but they have more of a goal and they're more, they get that driven energy that you're getting from that male's point of view, but as a heroine as well. Maybe the male is in the stands cheering them on. Maybe they have their own group that is encouraging them. Right. So you get that differences and it's really nice to have both perspectives. Either they're both athletes or maybe the female's an athlete, but I really like when it's different.
Yeah, agreed. 1,000%. What are some of the female heroines, really? The female athlete books that you've read?
So,
go ahead, Jess.
one by Rachel Van Dyken, Fraternize. She was actually a cheerleader. It was football. He was a football player, and then she was a cheerleader. And the title basically tells the story. They're not supposed to fraternize, and it was a love triangle, but it was like a rom-com love triangle, and it was probably one of my favorites because y'all know I like to laugh. So romantic comedy is probably one of my favorite things to like read and listen to. But when it comes to love
triangles, make me want to.
Yeah, they're like my least favorite. But this one was really good because it wasn't so angsty, and like I didn't feel like my heart would be ripped out if she didn't pick who I didn't want her to pick. I would just be sad, but I wouldn't be
9 out of 10 times they never pick the one I want. Yes, like that's exactly it. Like 9 out of 10 times they never pick the one I want, and I close the book and I'm like, what happened to my world?
Right.
Like why? And actually, I won't even say 9 out of 10. Maybe 7 out of 10. Like it's always the other one, and I'm like, but why? But I like the bad one.
Honestly, when it comes to love triangles, I'm like, why can't this just be an RH? Like, just add another one into it.
I mean,
threesomes all the way. Threesomes all the way. Why can't we just share? Why choose?
Threesomes, fivesomes.
Okay, now you're being greedy. You're being greedy now. Just all the D for free.
It's my harem, okay?
I'm collecting. I'm taking notes. Give me all the names. I did read an ice skating one by Anna B. Doe. That was the Kiss to Defy. That one was different for me.
I think that is that her latest book, or was it a little bit further back?
It might have been her latest. I know I read The Arc only a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I think that might be her latest because I want to say I saw teasers for like a new one that she has coming where it's actually going to be like a virgin hero and his best friend, the heroine, is pregnant. So it's like secret baby, surprise baby. So
well, that is right up your alley with all of that.
Exactly. So I'm like, let me put that down on my notes.
Yeah.
There's a couple heroines that are athletes that I can think of. But some like one that you said, you just jogged my memory, Heather, when you said like as a female I cannot be the heroine. So I definitely want somebody to write this as a more adult, spicier romance. I don't know how accurate it would be as far as, believable, but I read it was a YA and it was Dairy Queen. It was very cute, but I read this years ago, and the heroine was on her high school football team, and she got to be the quarterback.
Oh,
and I was like cheering her on. And
That's was so cool.
That is dope.
Yeah. I mean, I had a cousin. Yeah, I had a cousin in Hawaii. She was on her high school football team, but I couldn't do that. Like my ass would be laid out on the field somewhere. Like, is she okay? Is she breathing? And be like, who knows? I don't think.
That's in the stands, not on the field.
Yeah, like I could do powder puff if you wanted me to. Like, no,
I did that. That was fun.
No, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I've had 3 knee surgeries. I run away from all things. I'm allergic to exercise. No, I'm good.
Sniffles.
Yeah, right. Stay away. I'm going to sit and read a book about other people doing these things.
Like that. That's
because
I like it better. Let them do all the exercising.
Right? No, not for me.
That's so funny.
And then, who else do we have for like outside of the box sports? So, what do we got that you've read?
So I know that soccer isn't necessarily outside of the box, but R.S. Gray wrote Scoring Wilder, and Kinsley was the main character, the heroine, and she was a soccer player, like on, I might be getting the terms wrong because I don't follow soccer, but like on the pro soccer team for the college, and then she was training for the Olympics, and the love interest was her assistant coach or the coach, and he was a soccer star as well. So I really love that.
The soccer one that I read was Floored by Carla Sorensen. Let me tell you. And now, again, remember that I am not a sports romance person. I wanted to fly across the pond and find my own David Beckham. This book. And it's so funny because I love the books by, like, where it's coming from the UK, or they have, like, all these different ways of
Yeah.
like calling things. So it's like the
Like
field is the
euphemism.
pitch or something like
And
that.
then speaking of that too, Heather, like
Yes.
they call it don't they call it football across the
Football.
pond
Yes.
too?
So
So
their
I'm like,
soccer is football. And
I
I'm
like
like,
how you mentioning the terms like here in America, like how we call it one thing, but then like really it's
I know,
yes.
they're like American football. Like they don't like it's not.
yeah,
You
it's
know, I
like
feel like there's like that big disconnect because you have to make sure you're saying the ball that you kick or the ball that you throw.
Right.
like
Right. And it's so like, it's educational for me. But
yeah.
I mean, I met somebody from the UK. A friend of mine had dated her, and she was like, "Oh, I like your trainers." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And she's like, "Your sneakers." And I'm like, "Why don't you just call them that?" Like, what are you talking about, trainers? Like, so all of these different things. But this happened to be like a soccer book, and it legit made me want to be in London and watch some soccer, football to them. But and then I'd probably get my ass kicked for calling it soccer. So it was such a good book. I freaking loved it.
And it had a baby in there, so I'm like, as if it
Oh
could
yeah, they did.
look. This is what makes it even better for me. Like you gave me a baby, so
One night stand turned into baby.
I'll have to read that.
Yes.
On Instagram, I think her name is Sports Chick Reads, but she has really, really awesome sports romance recommendations. So I'm sure that she's read that book, but she has plenty of like soccer recommendations, and I'm always like adding to my cart.
Yeah. I liked the same series. It's so the series is about sisters. It's the Ward Sisters series. And the very first one that I read was Fake, and that was the snowboarder one. And I had never read a snowboarding romance before. Again, I could not snowboard to save my life because I value my legs being intact the way that they are. But that one was phenomenal. And it was actually the first book that I ever made an Instagram edit for because I was moved. You know that I can't make an edit.
It's like I loved him. Oh
It
my
was.
gosh.
I have to be moved by the story to make an edit. Like it has to like call to me. I'm not that talented and creative unless it pulls it out of me. And that book, fantastic. You should read all the Ward Sisters, Brie.
Yeah, you should. The
They're
Washington
probably on
Wolves,
my TBR.
like
They're probably on your shelf behind you.
right. Look, she might have an extra copy, and if you do, just send it my way. Like
That is so funny. Oh my god.
It's the truth. It is the truth.
I can't help it. I love books.
Hey, I love books too. My bank account just says, Heather, you need to stop that.
it's like the way my space is set up.
You're getting new space. That's okay.
Yeah.
I just kind of like shush my bank account and like let it happen.
This is fine. Hush your face.
What I'm doing, okay? Just
You mind your business, okay?
I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. Give me all the books.
Exactly. But back to Allie C's. Her U of J series, it is football college romance, but Kay, who is the heroine of the first 3 books, she was a competitive cheerleader and she's now a coach. So I really like that because I don't think that I've read many books where competitive cheerleading is involved. I know like I've read plenty where it's in high school cheerleaders, but they don't necessarily do anything after in college with that. So I really like that it's competitive cheerleading. Like I didn't know that there was like so much involved either.
Yeah.
So that was such a good introduction to that sport for me.
I cheered, but not competitively like they do. But I know the gym that she based that off of. A friend of mine actually used to work there, and they were fantastic.
That's awesome. I think that I need to read more where like the competitive cheerleading's involved because I thought it was so cool. Like they were flipping in the air, doing all these tumbles. Like I can't do that again, but that's really cool to like read.
yeah, I'm just in awe of like their skill, like you said, Brie, like all the different like tumbles and stunts. Like I'm literally in awe, but then it kind of scares me too because I'm like I cannot imagine being the person like having enough trust in someone to throw me in the air and catch me. Like I don't know if I have enough trust in me for that. So
Like I love like the Bring It On movies, love that, but I'm like I've seen them not catch them.
Exactly. Like, if you make somebody mad and all they got to do is just like, whoop, and I'm like, no, I don't have time to put
I was a flyer and I got dropped. It's always fun. I mean, I didn't land on my head or anything. Just.
But like the fact that you can land on your head. I'm
I
like,
mean, you could. I was a gymnast too. I've landed on my head plenty of times. You just kind of roll with it, and like they teach you how to fall. But the fact that you can read a book that shows how like these competitive sports, especially like cheerleading and stuff like that, happen. It's awesome.
oh, totally,
Yeah.
totally.
So, who's some of you guys' favorite sports characters, like favorite characters from sports romances?
Well, I would say that Mace from the U of J series by Ali Siz is definitely like one of mine, just because he's so dirty, spicy.
Jenny gonna get you, Heather. That's her man. She gonna come for you.
I'm not trying to step on toes. I'm just saying that I can appreciate from afar. I'm not trying to take anybody. Dex is mine. If we're going to talk about who is Dex, that man can get it. But if from appreciation point of view for sports, I'm going to say that Mace, he is a beautiful soul.
Casanova, yes.
What about you?
I know for me, so the basketball, how we talked about that kind of being like one of the sports you don't really see around too often. Like Kennedy Ryan's like Gus August, I love him. Like it's this one line where he tells Iris, "I'd play you by the 5," and I'm like, he's so swoony, and I love him. He's hands down one of my favorite like characters in sports romances. Like I love him. Keenan. Another one from the Hoop series. He's a single dad. He's from Hookshot. I love him too because he kind of started like closed off, like they hear this closed off, like I'm done with relationships, just gonna focus on me and my daughter. But then he meets the woman who like knocks him off his feet, his queen, and
Aww.
yeah.
See, it's those ones that pull you in. It's just like,
Yes.
oh, okay.
I think that who was it? So one of the first authors, I mean, you guys, it's not a shock, but one of the first authors that I really got into romance about was Tijan, and her.
That's your
Not
girl.
shocked at all.
I mean, she writes really great sports romance, but her Fallen Crest series,
Oh my
Sam
gosh.
is the heroine, and she uses running or track as like a way to escape. Like she needs to run. But she actually, I was so proud of her because she did it in college. Like she went from turning like in high school to like running for fun, which nope, I don't run for fun.
I don't see the fun in that, but
I
I
don't
was just
think
like,
that should
you
be
go,
the same
girl.
sentence. Running and fun,
Fun.
not the same. F that.
And the
No.
dedication she had to it too, because I'm like early in the morning or late at night, like when it called to her, she just had to run, and I was like, "Oh, girl, no."
But like,
There's gonna be a bear chasing me to get me to run. F that shit.
Exactly.
Where's the fire?
there was even like bonding moments with her and Mason. They like ran together, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. But
That
like, you
is
wouldn't
cute.
be doing that. But
They'll be like, oh, let's die together because I'm on the side of the road. Oh, where's your meet cute? She died. You know
Right.
what happened? They met,
passed out from exhaustion.
and then she died.
That's why I would be like a tiny bit afraid of even like maybe dating an athlete, because I'm like, are you gonna expect that from me too? Like for me to run
You
with
gotta
you or
set
work out
those
with you?
expectations
Like
ahead of time.
I can't do what you do, but I'm gonna watch you and
Exactly.
appreciate you.
now,
You want a cheerleader? Got you.
Got you.
now I do think the thing where they like do the push-ups with you sitting on their back and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, we can do that because I ain't got to do no
But
work.
that's still them working, not you.
Exactly. I'm just gonna sit and look cute.
That's right.
Everybody deserves a cheerleader in their life, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I will be there for you. I appreciate and support you.
But Sam, like, she even went to the series ended, and she went to the Olympics. Like, I was just I was excited for her too because Tijan didn't just leave it was a hobby for her. Like, she had her goal from start to finish on top of her relationship. So that was really good. And then something that I just remembered because I'm like, it's behind me right now.
Of course.
Right.
Of
You have
course,
like
it
every
goes
book
back.
by her, so they're all behind.
It goes back to the unique characters, but I think her name is Penny or Pen. But B. Page wrote I think she writes mainly reverse harem, but Academy of Stardom. It's 4 books, and they're dancers. Like they dance in college, and they actually bonded together dancing.
Oh,
I know this series. I haven't read it yet, but it is on my list that I want to read.
Like,
It gives me very like Step Up vibes, and
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Channing Tatum had practice making babies with that man. So if I could read about all that,
Oh, I mean, like there was really good scenes where they were practicing dancing, and it led to more. Like, oh, it's so
I love
I volunteer as
that.
tribute.
Like,
I volunteer as tribute. Sign me up. See, and this is the great part about reading is you live 1,000 lives in the pages,
You go
and then
from
my muscles don't prick the next day.
and my harem just grows.
It's like, when you die, it's like I got 100 men in the
The
books
limit does not
with me.
exist.
Exactly.
It's okay. It's okay. They are real to me.
They are real to me as well. I mean, like if we're gonna read the same book and you're gonna call dibs on somebody I already called dibs on, that's different. But
Yeah.
they're real to me.
See, and that's why I like to step back and I called the dead guy. I mean, you guys fight over the one that's still alive. My character died.
But like, what are you getting out of that? He's dead.
I got the lake scene.
But will live forever in every mind of the person who reads it. Like,
I mean, that's just the only people that we have fought over so far. Or you fought over. You and the Frenchman.
right.
Well, so that makes me think of something else. So I have a question for both of you guys.
Okay.
Now, as far as sports romance, I know that like a book can be advertised as sports romance. Have you guys read any books where it wasn't necessarily advertised as sports romance, but the characters had sports in them, or they did a sport, but maybe it was a different advertised, like dark romance, or maybe
Like Hannaford Pratt.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. The series y'all put me on that I like binged in a weekend. I was so freaking
Avery.
I was
Love
so
her.
freaking addicted. Like I could not.
I'm addicted to all the books by Jay Bree, but that's definitely a series that this is a dark RH harem.
Yeah.
Or RH romance.
Romance.
Yeah.
But the characters all had like, I don't want to call it a hobby.
Like a niche.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So they had swimming, they had track,
Dancing.
music, dance. So, and it wasn't even just like, oh yeah, they just went off and that's where they were and they disappeared. Like they actually like talked
Right,
about like
actually had
swimming,
scenes there
like,
at the-
like the
yeah.
dancing and like going to the studio. So it was something that was important in each of the characters' lives, and even the music aspect too, because that was his secret profession.
Right.
So, and then the main character was also good at singing. So it was different, but incorporated those. So I definitely liked that. And again, sang to my dark heart and RH world of love.
It adds to their characters like depth as well. If they're not just all about maybe the plot or the idea of the book, but like
Right.
they have other things that they're good at, or that they, like, hey, maybe we don't see this character for the night, but it's explained that they have a track meet or
Right.
they have a swim meet. They're
Exactly.
still doing something. They're just kind of like in the back for a little bit,
Mhm.
but you know why.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that where the sports is just barely, not, I don't want to say barely mentioned, but, doesn't take up the entirety of the point of the book, that's where, like, I'm okay with it. Like, again, because I'm not a huge sports romance fan, but I will still read it from my favorite authors because I know they won't let me down. When it's, just like a mention, I could totally get behind that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's not for everybody, they might still sneak it in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think that if you can like capture, like I think that goes back to doing the sport well, or right, like how you want to address what you're talking about. So like
Right.
if you capture my attention from the start, whatever you're trying to get across, like, I'm hooked. Whether it's art or sports, like, I'm hooked.
Right.
Exactly. Like, and that's kind of how it was with Christy Marie, her Commander series. Like, Theo Van Bremen, he was a baseball player, and like him and Aniston, like, they had that. They were honestly so ridiculous, and I wrote this in my review. I was like, they were ridiculous. Like, they just did the craziest thing. Like, in one of the books, they had their like wedding, right? Theo goes to get her garter, right? And proceeds to eat her out in the middle of the floor at their wedding. That's how ridiculous they are. But I love them. They are
know?
They are so shameless. Like,
did anyone know? Like, I'm sure.
So their friends knew because like,
clearly, I don't think that
she could only hide it so much, but they knew how ridiculous they were, and it's like, what are you doing so long under that dress? Like, it doesn't take that long to get a garter, but like,
did you get lost? You took some
lost, all right.
Lost in the tool.
Yeah, right. Like, how are you doing in there? Oh, it's that good. Right. Okay.
But, yeah,
all
like
right.
baseball, but like, they were ridiculous. I love them. So I don't even know how we got to that, but I just had to bring Theo up because he's sports.
I'm glad you did.
I'm glad you did too.
Like, the whole series is just amazing. But I think that's the sports aspect of the series. But then they kind of turned it into where he kind of goes into like scouting, and it kind of goes into that. But yeah, like, that's another sports series. Like, and I'm honestly just obsessed with everything Christy Marie. Like,
yes. I will definitely have to be putting that on my
and it's an
TV
audio because y'all know that's how I listen. I listen to everything she's. Yeah, it's an audio.
That's awesome. That makes me think of, well, not that scene.
Yeah, well, let's say, what else are we thinking about?
Boys of Brayshaw High.
Yes.
In basketball, but
yes, but
it wasn't like, it wasn't too much of it. I don't even think like there was that many basketball scenes by the third book.
Yeah.
But that was like something else was going on, and their hobby was basketball. So like that was like a good one too.
Yeah.
I loved that book, but again, I don't think that it was centered around that at all, and like there wasn't even that many parts of the book that were like, oh hey, we have to go to this game, or we're going to play. Because they played like for fun. It wasn't like they were, sanctioned and going to like pro for it or anything like that.
Like, also, it made sense in a way because their dynamic was that they were like the rulers of the town, so it wasn't even as important to them as what they were trying to deal with at the time.
Right.
And like in that sense, it made sense.
Right. There's so many, and I think that that's the best part about, the sports romance, or even just, tropes and like genres in general, because it could have a little bit there and a little bit not. So this just happens to be very broad and specific at the same time.
Right. I think that's a great way to explain it.
It can encompass or be an umbrella for a lot of things underneath it. And in the same sense, another bigger genre or bigger trope can encompass sports. Like it's very easily switched.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think that is a great place to wrap it up for this episode. We have some crazy things coming for March that we are so excited about. We have some new author friends coming to spill the spice with us, and a great trip. So, we will see and talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.